The science of gut health and why it matters. What do you think about gut health? You might picture uncomfortable symptoms like bloating and gas and going to the loo too often. But it turns out that your gut health doesn't just affect your digestive system, it also affects your physical health like your immune system and your mental health. Hi friends, I am Kuratula and you are watching Nutro Plus. Today we will talk about the science of gut health. What is the impact of it on your general productivity? If we want to live healthier, happier lives, we might actually involve getting our guts into better shape. Before we proceed, subscribe to our YouTube channel for amazing content. An interview was taken from one of the UK's leading experts on gut health, Sophie Medlin, who is a consultant dietitian specializing in gut health and a lecturer in King's College London. And she regularly features on TV in the UK. So in this video, we are going to be summarizing a bunch of evidence into actionable recommendations. So let's start with the basics. What is the gut? The gut, as you might know, is short for gastrointestinal tract. So this is the long tube that starts at the mouth and ends at the anus where our poop comes up. And the primary function of the gut is to break down the food that we eat to absorb nutrients and to get rid of waste. But it's a lot more than that. The gut is also home to trillions of microorganisms, collectively known as the gut microbiome, and this includes all of the bacteria, fungi, and viruses that live in our digestive tracts. And these germs help to break down the food that we eat, turning it into the nutrients that our body needs. So, what does having a healthy gut actually mean? A healthy gut is basically a healthy and balanced gut microbiome. In the last 30 years, scientists have discovered that the effects of our gut health goes way beyond our digestive well-being because our gut has a massive impact on our mental health and our physical health and our risk of loads of different diseases and disorders. If we look at gut health, the more we realize that it is impacting every part of our body and every system in our body. How does the gut affect our mental health? So there is a very strong line of communication between your gut and your brain, which we refer to as the gut-brain axis, and the chattiest organ between your brain and your gut. Your gut is constantly telling your brain all sorts of different things and throwing up messages that you got to deal with it. Connection between the gut and brain. It turns out that there are 3 connections between the gut and the brain that create strong links. First, there is a chemical connection. The gut microbiome, dopamine, which are chemicals in our brain that make us happy and help regulate our mood and behavior. Secondly, there is a hormonal connection through a link in the brain called the HPA axis. HPA axis is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. It's a complex set of interactions between the hypothalamus and pituitary gland in your brain and the adrenal glands, which are just above your kidneys. Thirdly, there is a physical connection between the gut and the brain through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the main nerve of our parasympathetic nervous system. This system controls specific body functions like digestion and heart rate and the immune system. How does our gut affect our physical health? One important connection between the gut and our physical health is through our immune system. The complex network of organs, cells, and proteins that defend the body against infection while protecting the body's own cells. How to get a healthier gut? So we are going to be going through 5 things that we can add and 5 things that we can remove from our diet to improve the balance and diversity of bacteria in our gut. Number 1. Name for 30 different plants per week. The most important thing for your gut health is that you are eating 30 different plants a week. So trying to eat lots of a variety of different types of plants. Eating many different types of plant food improves our gut health by encouraging the growth of different species of bacteria that lives there. Tip number 2. It's a lot easier to just eat the same things every day But if we want to optimize our health, what we should do instead is to aim for variety rather than consistency. And this is very much in line with the whole 30 plants per week. Tip number 3. If you have this variety in your diet, then that encourages more diversity and variety of the gut microbiome, which, as we have already discussed, is how we get a healthy gut. Number 3 aims for 30 grams of fiber every day. Tip number 4. Microbiotics are foods or supplements that contain live microorganisms that are intended to maintain or improve the gut. Now, this point is a little bit controversial because the evidence is not wholeheartedly in favor of a probiotic, but there have been a bunch of studies showing that they have good effects. There's a few different options out there, either in the form of tablets or in the form of bottles, but you have got to be aware of what the manufacturer and expiry date. Tip number 5. Aim for 2 portions of oily fish per week. Oily fish contains long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, and our gut loves omega-3. We need 2 portions of oil fish a week for brain health. It's important for controlling inflammation in the brain. The structure of your brain, if you don't eat oily fish, it's a bit like taking out 25% of the bricks of your house and replacing them with polystyrene. 25% of your brain wants to be made from oily fish. So, salmon, mackerel, and sardines are oily fish, but unfortunately tuna and cod and sea bass do not count as oily fish. If you are vegetarian, then you can replace the fish with vegetarian sources of omega-3. So for example, flaxseed or flaxseed oil or canola oil or soya bean oil. Those sorts of things, or you can just take a supplement for omega-3. 5 things that we should avoid. To be honest, for most of these things, it's going to be hard to eliminate these foods from our diet. So generally aiming to reduce our intake of them is probably more realistic and more sustainable in the long run. Tip number 1. Cut down on red meat. We look at scientific evidence behind this, and it turns out that too much red meat is not in fact good for our gut health. Generally, red meats are associated with a high risk of cardiovascular disease and other nasty things like cancer. So the World Cancer Research Fund says we should only have 3 portions of red meat per week, and that's 500 grams, 350 to 500 grams in total. Otherwise, we are putting ourselves at high risk of bowel cancer. Tip number 2. Avoid processed foods. This is basically anything that comes in a packet like sausages or bread or crisps. And the reason why processed foods are generally bad is that they contain a lot of additives and preservatives, and these things make the food last longer. But the way they work is that they stop the natural bacteria inside the food from making the foods go off. So when we eat these preservatives, we also stop the good bacteria from going in our gut because the preservatives generally inhibit the bacteria. Tip number 3. Avoid artificial sugars. Unfortunately, artificial sugars are not very good for our gut health. But what we do know is that when we have artificial sweeteners, our body is anticipating having sugar and things change to get ready to have that sugar. When it doesn't come, that has an impact. So there's data to suggest that it increases our insulin production. Tip number 4. Avoid diet fats and detoxes. So if you do something like a juice cleanse, you are actually depriving your body of lots of really important nutrients. Meaning it's gonna work much harder, and in that process of your body working much harder, it's releasing more things that we might consider to be toxic, like oxidative stress and that kind of stuff. Tip number 5. Avoid counting calories, and if you try to lose weight, then the immediate thing that most people do is count their calories. But according to Sophie, it turns out it's not very effective when it comes to gut health, and the reason for this is that calories don't really reflect the nutritional value of what you are consuming. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. Stay tuned to Nutro Plus to follow a healthy lifestyle. I'll see you hopefully in the next video. Goodbye.